Did you hear about that email floating around recently, the one supposedly sent on behalf of the president teasing rebate checks coming our way? If you didn't, don't worry, because I've got all the details right here. And if you did hear about it, you might still be curious about whether this thing is legit, what's really behind it, and what it actually means for you. I stumbled across an article that not only breaks down what was in the email but also includes the email itself, so you can see it word for word. I'll walk you through what it said, where it came from, and why people are talking about it like it's the golden ticket to free money. Spoiler, it's a little more complicated than that. Now, this email was presented as if it were sent on behalf of the president himself. It had a subject line and body text talking about the possible distribution of rebate checks, or as they also called them, bonus payments. The justification? Profits from tariffs that have been implemented over the last few years. That's right, the email hinted at the idea that the U.S. has been raking in record amounts of money from tariffs, and now some of that cash could be flowing back to the people. Sounds intriguing, right? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The email quickly grabbed attention. I mean, let's be honest, if you see something in your inbox saying you might get a check from the government, you're at least going to open it. And that's exactly what this was designed to do. This wasn't some boring policy update or vague press release, it was framed like a sneak peek into a windfall. But as we dig deeper, we'll see that the purpose of the email wasn't purely informational. Before I get into the political backstory, let's talk about where this all started. The buzz over rebate checks didn't just appear out of nowhere. A few weeks back, the president was on his way out of the country heading to Scotland for a short trip when a reporter asked him about the possibility of giving money back to Americans in the form of rebates. The president didn't brush it off. In fact, he leaned into the idea, hinting that it was something worth considering. That little moment set off a chain reaction. Within days, there were follow-up statements, speculation from commentators, and then, sure enough, the introduction of actual legislation. That legislation is called the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025. It's the brainchild of Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican who picked up on the president's remarks and ran with them. The proposal is straightforward in concept: take the money generated from tariffs, money coming in at historically high levels, and redistribute some of it back to the American people in the form of checks. According to the pitch, about 80 to 85% of the population could be eligible. The figure that's been floated is $600 per person. Now, you might be wondering, is this real? Could this actually happen? Or is this just another piece of political theater designed to score points and grab headlines? That's the $1 million, or rather, the $600 question. Here's where the email comes in. It was crafted to grab attention and get people clicking. But buried under the excitement is the fact that it's a fundraising email. That's right, the main goal wasn't to actually get checks into people's hands right away, but to rally support, generate buzz, and yes, encourage donations. When you click into it, you're met with language that plays up the possibility of bonus payments tied to the extra income the country is earning from tariffs. The narrative is pretty simple: the U.S. is bringing in more money than ever from these tariffs, billions of dollars a month, and instead of letting it just sit in government coffers, why not share it with the public? On paper, it's a crowd pleaser. After all, who doesn't like the idea of getting a bonus check just for being a citizen? For context, the U.S. is indeed collecting record tariff revenues right now. The numbers are staggering. Projections suggest $300 billion a year in tariff income. That's a lot of cash flowing into the federal government. Supporters of the rebate idea argue that this isn't free money in the sense of a handout, it's money that comes from tariffs on imports, which, in theory, are paid by foreign companies or governments. Of course, in reality, many economists point out that consumers in the U.S. often end up bearing the cost through higher prices on goods. So while the government's taking in more money, people are also paying more at the checkout line. It's a trade-off. If this all sounds vaguely familiar, it might be because a similar situation popped up earlier this year. Back then, the talk was about a so-called $5,000 Doge dividend, not to be confused with cryptocurrency, but rather some proposed savings program nicknamed after a famous American figure. The details were hazy, the concept was flashy, and yes, a fundraising email went out about it too. In the end, nothing came of it. The program fizzled out, and no one got those $5,000 payments. The problem was that the revenue projections never matched reality, and there simply wasn't enough money to make it happen. The difference this time is that the money is actually coming in. We know that tariff revenues are real, measurable, and already flowing into the Treasury. That doesn't mean the checks are guaranteed, far from it, but it adds a layer of credibility that the Doge dividend never had. Still, it's important to separate hype from fact. Just because the president floated the idea and a senator introduced a bill doesn't mean the payments are approved, funded, and ready to go. The legislative process in Washington can be painfully slow, and even bills with broad public support can get bogged down in political gridlock. Add to that the fact that we're in a highly charged political climate, and you can see why it's far from a sure thing. The email plays on that uncertainty. By framing it as something that could be just around the corner but only if the right people are in place to make it happen, it nudges readers toward political engagement. And, in the context of a fundraising email, engagement often means opening your wallet. Let's zoom out for a moment and think about the strategy here. Political fundraising emails have become a genre of their own. They often use big, eye-catching promises or urgent warnings to hook readers. They rely on emotional triggers: hope, fear, anger, pride to keep you reading and clicking. And they're not just for one side of the political spectrum, both major parties use these tactics extensively. The rebate check email is a textbook example. Take a real proposal, amplify it with exciting language, and link it to the idea that your support can help make it happen. From a communications standpoint, it's clever. From a policy standpoint, it's murkier. The American Worker Rebate Act of 2025 still has to go through all the usual steps: committee reviews, debates, potential amendments, votes in both chambers of Congress, and then, of course, the president's signature. Along the way, it could get altered, delayed, or scrapped entirely. There's also the question of how the money would be distributed, who exactly would qualify, and whether it would be a one-time payment or something recurring. Another factor to consider is how the tariff revenue is currently being used. Government budgets are complicated beasts, with funds earmarked for countless programs, projects, and obligations. Redirecting a chunk of that $300 billion a year to direct payments might mean cutting back elsewhere, or it might require additional borrowing. Supporters argue it's worth it, critics say it's fiscally irresponsible. In the political arena, though, the optics of sending checks to Americans are powerful. It's the kind of tangible action that voters remember. Whether you call it a rebate, a bonus, or a stimulus, getting money in the mail makes a bigger impression than a policy change you can't see or feel directly. That's why ideas like this tend to pop up, especially in election cycles. The president's endorsement of the concept, even in a casual remark, gives it weight. Hawley's decision to turn it into formal legislation gives it structure. The email campaign gives it visibility. Put all that together, and you have a perfect recipe for public buzz. But buzz isn't the same as reality. Right now, the status of the rebate checks is this: the idea exists, the bill exists, the tariff revenues exist, and the president likes the concept. But no law has been passed, no checks have been authorized, and no official distribution plan has been announced. Everything else, including that flashy email, is part of the ongoing push to keep the idea alive and in the public eye. So what should you take away from this? First, be cautious when you see emails promising money from the government, even if they look official. Second, understand that political communication often blends information with persuasion. And third, know that while the rebate check proposal is real in the sense that it's on paper and has supporters, it's not guaranteed. There's nothing wrong with being hopeful about getting some money back, especially if it's tied to a revenue source like tariffs that feels separate from your regular tax dollars. But it's also worth remembering that nothing in Washington moves as fast as an email headline. The legislative process can take months or even years, and plenty of ideas never make it across the finish line. For now, the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025 will make its way through Congress. There will be hearings, there will be debates, and there will be plenty of spin on both sides. You'll likely see more emails, more headlines, and more speculation. Some will present it as inevitable, others will dismiss it as a gimmick. The truth will be somewhere in between. In the meantime, it's worth keeping an eye on the big picture. Tariffs are a double-edged sword. On one hand, they bring in revenue, on the other, they can drive up prices for consumers. Any rebate you might receive would essentially be giving you back some of the extra money you've already spent because of those tariffs. Whether that feels fair or not depends on your perspective. At the end of the day, the rebate check email is a reminder of how political messaging works in the modern era. It takes a kernel of truth, in this case, real tariff revenues and a real legislative proposal, and wraps it in a package designed to get you emotionally invested. Whether that investment pays off in the form of an actual check remains to be seen. For now, the smartest approach is to stay informed, keep your expectations realistic, and watch how the story unfolds. If the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025 gains traction, you'll hear about it from multiple sources, not just a single email. And if it stalls, well, it won't be the first time a promising-sounding proposal faded into political memory. One thing's certain, as long as there's money coming into the government from tariffs, there will be debates over how to use it. Some will want to spend it on infrastructure, some on debt reduction, some on social programs, and some like Hawley and the president on direct payments to citizens. How that debate plays out will determine whether the rebate checks remain a talking point or become a line item in the federal budget. Until then, take the email for what it is, a piece of political theater with a real proposal behind it, but no guarantees. The possibility is there. The reality? That's still in the hands of lawmakers. And in Washington, as you know, anything can happen, but it usually takes a lot longer than the headlines make it seem.